Man, what's good, what's good, what's goody? It's your buzzing cousin GhostBoogie. Check it out. It is B-Boys Underground, man. We're over 100 episodes strong. This is the very first episode of 2026. I want to give a big shout out and thank you to each and every single one of y'all that's tuning in live for the first time, and also the folks that are here on a repeat basis. This interview has been an interview that when I started this show and got G-Fresh and we resurrected B-Boys Underground, the old radio show, this interview was on my vision board. This interview was something that I had planned and said I'm gonna go get it and, put it in the air, and it happened. This next artist, BReal from Cypress Hill, has been with me throughout my entire life. Since they came on the scene, made a humongous impact on my life throughout my teenage years, all the way through adulthood, and even here now as I stand here, because of the two people that actually are here, because we have C- and BReal. I have lost over 220 pounds. I have beat cancer. I have fought and am fighting long haul COVID, all of the impacts of cancer. I've lost a kidney. I've done all of these things. I've had 30 plus surgeries. I've died twice. And when it was time for me to pick myself up off the ground and decide that, it was time, I looked at C- and I looked at BReal during the pandemic and everything like that with the Dr. Green Thumb podcast. And it was a way that I am here and I'm alive. So I absolutely, positively, 100%. Oh, a big, 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 big shout out and thank you to BReal and C- for me being here, for this show being here, for me knowing all of you individuals and having the opportunity to start B-Boys Underground. We're live, direct, raw, uncut, unfiltered from the booth. We're bringing you the truth. Without further ado, let's get into it, man. We got the one and only Mr. BReal, Dr. Green Thumb himself. How are you, fam? What's goody?
I'm good. Glad to be here with you, man. And thank you for those words. And it's inspiring that you've been through all these things and have been able to, get through it and keep pushing forward. And here today, hosting a podcast, you know what I'm saying, or a live stream.
Yes, sir. We are a podcast. We're a live stream. We're doing it all, man. And then next up, we've got the one and only, my bro, Mr. C- himself. How are you, fam?
I'm good. I'm like literally chilling in the dark.
That's right. You're Mr. Synonymous.
Good to be here. Thank you for those extremely kind words. It's good to know, man, that because when we went on during those times, it's good to know we had a really cool impact of being able to, influence you in this show and this everything, man. I appreciate you. Salute back to you.
Hey, man. Much love to you, family. And of course, we got my homie Bluebeard, man. Ways, how are you, fam?
What up, Boogie? Nothing but love. Nothing
Yeah,
but love for you guys. B, C.
yeah, man. All right. So, listen, how this is going to work, and as we know, it always starts with one question. And actually, there's going to be a couple questions that we have for you, C, because, I mean, B and C, because we've already asked C all of these questions. I know C, but
Yeah.
you, uh, B, so way we always start the show is, and for you guys that are new here, we start with the very first question, and it is I want to know, tell me your first memory that you have associated with hip hop,
Hip hop.
and what I'm looking for is for you to put me in the room, put me in the space, the place, who's there, what's the smell in the air, what's going on, and what was it? And more importantly, what was it about that memory that had such a significant impact on you that helped put you on this path that is here today?
Well, my first experience to hip hop, I was, you know, living in Southgate, loosely, I guess, at that point. My grandmother lived in Southgate, and my mother, my sister, and I, we lived in Bell, and we constantly go back and forth from Bell to Southgate, and we found ourselves in Southgate more of the time, and I ended up meeting these group of kids that were into the b-boy shit. You know what I mean? And previously, I was listening to metal and oldies and things like that. Listening to a little bit of everything, but metal is what I was listening to mostly. But I had previously lived like in East LA, like all over the place. My parents moved around a lot, and when they separated, my mother ended up moving to a city called Bell, and so she lived in Bell. Grandmother lived in Southgate, and so when I go to visit my grandmother, I met these group of kids down there that they were into the earliest parts that we knew as hip hop, as being West Coast kids being introduced to hip hop. They were already into it, and I was like intrigued by it. Um, and but the first musical experience in terms of what got me. We
Mm-hmm.
were in my one of my guys, his garage space that he would use to like kick back, and we'd practice there. He was like one of the main guys in the group of b boys that I started hanging out with. Everybody like they were breakdancing or popping. I didn't do either yet, and we were in this dude's like garage in Southgate, and it's one of those spots. It's like not a man cave because he ain't a man yet. It's a spot where his father like gave him to chill outside the house with a bunch of boxing shit because he was into boxing and stuff like that. But he was also a badass break dancer, and unbeknownst to me at the time, because I'm into metal at this point and I'm barely starting to get into the experience of what this is. On Friday nights we tune into 1580 K Day, which those guys introduced me to. They were already listening to it as kids. I mean, and we're all very young at this point, but they were already onto it. And 1580 K Day, if you grew up in Los Angeles, you know that was like the first station that they were playing hip hop on, at least for our generation that are in our uh, 50s and 60s and whatnot. By now, that was our first introduction to it, and we were in his back garage, pumping you know, his boom box, because a lot of us had the boom boxes at the time. I didn't have one yet, but the homie did, and he
What
cranked
year
that
is this
shit
again?
up. This was probably 84, 85,
Okay.
something like
Yeah,
that. Probably
boombox were the life
Okay.
back then too.
85, yeah. And he turned on the 1580 KDAY station, and I believe the first song that I heard, I mean, I know they were playing other shit that was before it, but one of the first songs that got me was like Run DMC, you know. I think it was What are the first? It was the first two. First, it was the Here We Go shit,
Hmm.
and then it was it's like that.
Sucker MC.
Then
And it's
Vince, yeah, Sucker MC. Sorry, excuse
gotcha.
me. It was those first two songs that got me, and then they started doing like rock type of shit on top of their stuff, like King of Rock and Rock Box and all that stuff. So Run DMC pulled me in, but my very first experience was in my homie's garage in Southgate. We're cranking the mix show for the first time that I'm hearing it, and it blew my mind. It was something completely different than what I was exposed to at the time. Again, I was listening to heavy metal and shit like that, and rock and doo wop 50s music, old soul and shit like that. But I, didn't know what this hip hop thing was until they turned that on that station, and then my mind got blown because I mean there was more than just Run DMC that they were playing. They were playing whatever was available, whether you liked it or not. It
Right.
was exposure to this new genre, and after that first night in my bro's garage, and we didn't smoke weed yet. We weren't even drinking yet. We were just like they were like immersed in the b-boy part of the hip hop culture, and I was like, sort of being inspired by them. I didn't even think about rapping. I was like, fuck, I got to learn how to pop, and I started to learn how to pop because I wasn't good at breakdancing, so I got into the popping aspect. And as I got more and more into that, you know, it's a lot of electronic style hip hop music, or what we deemed as that, but it's electronic music. And that just sort of reeled me in. I stopped listening to heavy metal at that point and just was immersed in hip hop music at that point, living it, breathing it, trying to, figure out how I fit into that.
Hell yeah, man. So, and you mentioned metal, and I know for a fact that, you've mentioned it plenty of times. It's well known that you like Ozzy, and Ozzy and
Oh yeah.
Sabbath were huge, right? And, you know, I was exposed to a tremendous amount of music. It was something that was always readily available. My parents, growing up in Cincinnati, I'm now in Denver, but growing up in Cincinnati, we had funk, soul, it's just a melting pot. And even with when hip hop came around, it's always been a melting pot of styles. And um, the one thing I want to ask you about with the metal, right? I grew up and my parents loved like Sabbath and especially Zeppelin. Zeppelin, I grew up like, and I am a humongous Zeppelin fan. C and I talk Zeppelin all day long. We can. Um,
Yeah.
and what would you say in regards to like Ozzy, right? What kind of impact did he have on you growing up since you were, someone that, you listened to like metal and rock first, right? So
Yeah.
what was it? What was that one for you?
Well, like guys like Ozzy and Robert Plant and David Lee Roth were huge to me, but mostly Ozzy. I don't know why. It's just something that I connected to from his solo work first, and then learning who Ozzy was. Being in a band previously called Black Sabbath, and then being kicked out of that band and watching the
Mm,
roller coaster ride of the career. Just being a fan from that day, and watching him evolve as a solo artist, but going back and seeing the brilliant work that he did with um with the band beforehand. And it
yeah.
just made me a bigger fan after I discovered Black Sabbath, because then to see where he started from, which was really fucking incredible,
Hmm.
into what he evolved to, which was amazing. So yeah, I've been a fan since I was first put on to Ozzy by my cousin George. Salute to my cousin George. He was more metal than me, because he
I
hung out with
got you.
white kids. He hung out with the white kids that were into the metal.
Uh-huh.
Um, for me, the music I was listening to before metal was just a mix of my parents and my older siblings' music. So, my father loved to listen to the 50s doo-wop shit. My mother would listen to a lot of the Latin and Hispanic based songs, the salsa, the merengue, all that, the Caribbean style, and the Latin jazz, and then she would also listen to like the Beatles and the Stones and Tommy and the who am I looking for? See, you're the
Uh,
encyclopedia. Tommy James
C's
and the
not. Uh,
oh,
I know who
that's
you're
right.
talking about, though. Yeah,
Tommy James or Tommy
Tommy
Randell or
Drell and
something.
the
Yeah,
is it?
there you go. Tommy Drell.
Yeah,
There you go.
and the
Uh,
Chandrels or something like
and the
that. Because I
Chanterelles,
yes,
Crimson
yeah,
Clover.
yeah, yeah.
And then
That was one of my first records that
yeah,
I had. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
Yeah, it
and then
is.
my half siblings, who I grew up with, a lot of them underneath them because they were significantly older than me. They were listening to like the old soul. Well, to them it wasn't old, but like people would consider it old. So they were listening to like the Temprees and the Dramatics and all that sort of stuff, and they were listening to more of the Motown type of thing. Um, and then some of the very, Mexican centric music they were
mm,
listening to. So I was listening to a little bit of all that from my Cuban side to my my Mexican heritage side to my brothers and sisters growing up here in the United States having their own palettes aside from our prospective parents and whatnot. But
yeah,
hip hop was truly ours when we got introduced to it. So that's why it was so significant. But metal was like something very aggressive and in your face, and I love that shit. And
mhm,
that's how I gravitated to it. And I was listening to Ozzy, Priest, Rush, um, the Scorpions,
mm.
Van Halen, obviously, and a fucking slew of of rock and heavy metal shit, Iron Maiden,
Hell yeah,
all that stuff. And when hip hop took hold, I let go of all that stuff for many years, and that was the power that hip hop had, though. And in our generation, it was so new, and we felt like it was ours. Either you went to punk, new wave, or hip hop, and a lot of us, ended up in the hip hop section of the record stores and whatnot. So, yeah, but it was Run DMC because they had that hard, aggressive, in your face type of shit that it was very comparable to metal. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, they're attributed with doing the first crossover with, you know, merging
Aerosmith
metal
walked
and hip
this
hop
way.
with Aerosmith. Yeah.
And I mean, that was a big thing
Classic.
for hip hop in general, period. I mean, that was kind of the first salvo, besides, of course, Rapper's Delight, but that was kind of one of the first salvos that, I guess mainstream kind of took it more seriously.
Well, Run
Uh,
DMC was the first spark for
yeah,
everybody, I think. I mean, yes, there was hip hop groups that were doing it before them. There were artists like Curtis Blow doing it before them.
the
But in the
message was
group,
huge.
yeah, those were all great. You know what I mean? Those
Yeah,
were all great in the pantheon of hip hop songs. There was a lot of great hip hop songs that came from the first generation, but Run DMC was the actual spark that made everybody that wasn't from New York want to do this thing called hip hop music and rap and go back and forth like Run DMC. I mean, they inspired so many. They don't give enough flowers for that, but I
yeah.
mean, yeah, you ask any rapper from the golden era, you know, there's a few that will mention other names, but most will mention Run DMC.
Hell yeah, man. I do want to ask you, at age 14, what was in your crate? So whether it be crate of
Huh.
records,
I had no
CD, no, you
crates.
didn't have CDs,
Yeah, I
tapes,
didn't. I, you
anything
know,
like tapes.
tapes I had Black Sabbath tapes, all the Black Sabbath tapes, all the existing solo Ozzy tapes. At the Blizzard of Oz was the second one that I had gotten, and then I went and got all the Black Sabbath shit. I had all of the Van Halen music that was out at the time, Rush. I had quite a few metal tapes. I didn't have any hip hop tapes until Run DMC's first shit. Then we got that. Then when Houdini popped theirs off, Rock Houdini, LL, Beastie Boys. Then I started like collecting all those. Where those went, I don't know. But like I started, like beforehand, before hip hop. Yeah, it was all a few metal tapes. Yeah, I was even into the Pretenders, and they weren't so metal, but there was something about them. They were dope.
Oh yeah, the Pretenders were dope. I mean, that's an Ohio group
Chrissy
right
Hynde,
there. I
yeah,
mean, yep.
yeah, they were
So
dope. And
yeah,
my
Chrissy
one of my
Hines.
older cousins, put me onto the Pretenders. He liked a
Chrissy
lot of
Hines is
different.
dope.
Yeah, they
Oh,
were
yeah.
fucking really
Yeah, man, that's dope, man. So, you know, when you started, you know, getting into hip hop and doing making the move and the transition, and I know there's a lot to the story, and it's a very deep story in regards to how I started the show off was talking about how music and hip hop kind of saved my life in the beginning, and it gave me a way and kept me out of trouble myself, and also it was something in music that helped save my life again, and I used it to go on this health journey and be here, right, and be present for my wife and kids, and do better. But hip hop saved your life.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I've seen all of the art interviews,
Hell
and for
yeah.
the folks that don't know, I mean, you almost lost your life because you were very active in the streets, right?
Yeah.
So, tell me about like that transition, and you know, I want to know not just the transition itself, but you know, what you felt, the emotions you felt, because I know you had to have been pulled, and there was
Well,
a great struggle.
yeah, I mean, at first when we got into hip hop, it was like the hobby. We appreciated the music, and we wanted to emulate the music that we were hearing. Um, but after, some time, I start hanging out with the different group of guys that they weren't necessarily focused on music, and I sort of went away from the group of guys that I was hanging out with, in Sendog and his brother Mello, and all the guys from the Cypress block. I end up, you know, getting involved with the gang culture, and I was active for for a number of years as a very young young buck, if you
How
will.
old were you when you were active?
Sometimes you get recruited at 14 and 15. That was
Yeah,
probably 15 at the time.
got
And
it.
yeah, I was running wild. And you know, um, you s- as you sort of get indoctrinated and you start, running around doing the things that gangbangers do and soldiers do, because until you're calling shots, that's what you are. You're a soldier for your neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of soldiering for a time. And um, at a certain point, my guys in Sendog and Mello and Muggs, who had gotten opportunities into the music, were constantly trying to invite me to the studio. And hey, man, you should come down, check out what we're doing. We're working on Mello's thing, and Muggs was in 783 at this time. What a lot of people don't know is that we knew Muggs before 783. We were all sort of experimenting with doing stuff
Hmm.
very early on, but I, left the picture, and these guys kind of stood the course. And Muggs joined 783, and Mello gets his deal. And so, they start trying to recruit me to come to the studio to help write um, for Mello. he didn't really need the writing, but they thought, hey, let's get him out of the street and let's he's got a good pen. Maybe he could write 2 songs for the album. And so that's what I did. I really didn't believe in it. They came and told me, "What am I gonna do? I'm gonna leave the streets, man. This shit ain't gonna get us paid. You're crazy."
Hmm.
I was the first non-believer. You know what I mean? Um,
Gotcha.
it took me a second to buy in. But yeah, I was like, yeah, what is it? We're gonna get paid from rap music. Get the fuck out of here, because I knew it was our hobby. But at the hobby point, it wasn't like something I thought that we would be doing for our career. I didn't know what I was gonna do. I was completely indoctrinated in the gang, so I thought I was gonna be fucking, you know, slanging drugs and eventually getting stripes to call shots and all this other shit. So I was completely out of it. And when they came for me, they said, "Hey, man, you don't got nothing to lose. Just come see what the vibe is like."
Hmm.
You know, you don't got to make a decision on that day or whatever. Just come hang out and see what it's like. And so I went to one of the sessions, and this time they were working on Mello's record at Delicious Vinyl. And Delicious Vinyl had Young MC, they had Tone Loc, they had Body and Soul, they had um, I can't remember who else, but like, and they were constantly coming through. So I'd be seeing these people who I'm hearing on the radio, and I'm like, oh shit, this is awesome, And I got bit by the bug. I didn't, I wanted to spend more time in the studio because I liked the feeling that I was getting being around these great and creative people. So, I started spending less time in the street and more time in the studio and being more excited about that than holding down the block. And when it came time to make a decision on what I was going to do, because I was pretty deeply in, but I didn't, now I got this new passion and I want to give it a go. But I know that I cannot bring both those worlds together because that would be selfish of being stupid at the same time. Um, so I had to make a decision. Like, hey, I talked to my closest guys in the circle of my set, and I said, hey, I'm gonna go and try and do this. Are y'all cool with that? And they're like, yeah, go do that. And no one ever gave me shit about it. Maybe not till later, but
Yeah.
but but my close circle of guys were, very supportive, and they're like, "Hey, man, go do that shit. Get out of here." And so, I made the decision to not bring any of that into this over here and focus completely on being, um, a creative person through hip hop music and stuff like that. And fortunately, they were able to convince me that my time would be better spent in the studio than on that corner. And they were right. I owe those 3 guys for that. Or, I salute them because without their persistence on coming back to get me and recognizing that I had a talent in writing, yeah, I probably would have stood on that corner, eventually, end up in prison or dead or paralyzed. Nothing good. So, but that was the transition point is being in the studio with Mello, like for his album, contributing in the way that I was, and just being around and seeing all these people that again I was hearing on the radio, and I was like, fuck, this is amazing, and I could not get that feeling anywhere else. So that's when I pretty much decided that I was going to be a hip hop artist one way or another.
Man, that's dope. And after that journey and how that transpired, and you said, I can remember the first time that I ever got around and was in that environment, and how I was like, yeah, this is I'm all in to this. And it was great. And I want to know, when you think about, as you started to write, who was the first person that like influenced your pen, like when you were writing, and I'm going to take a step back for a moment because you had mentioned in an interview before that you were interested in journalism and
Yeah,
writing.
yeah, I mean, I thought that would be something that I was gonna do, maybe in life, was maybe be a journalist.
Yeah.
But I didn't I didn't stay in school long enough to get those particular skill sets,
Yeah.
right? But writing was always something I was doing. I'd, write poetry and shit like this. And Mellow Man Ace, which is Sendog's younger brother, knew that I was into that. Um,
Yeah. We
and so he was like, "Hey, you could convert these poems. If you could write poems, you could write raps." And so, he was my first teacher, Mello. He was like, look, you take this phrase and then you rhyme another phrase with this top phrase, just like you do this poetry, but you do it on beat. So, when he broke it down and then he, wrote something for me to like look at, like so that I could visualize it and see it. That's when I first started writing raps. So Mello was the first one who sort of taught me to put the poetry into the rap shit. And in terms of writing songs, it was Brett B from 783 who pretty much wrote Hand on the Pump, co-wrote Hand on the Pump. He wrote most of it actually. And with that song, it taught me structure. Like,
okay.
because before, we were like trying to think of catchy hooks and then, these long ass, long-winded verses that were way too long. Um, but he showed me how to shorten it up and how to, the chorus, the formula of how you write a song from verse to chorus to verse to chorus, bridge, hook, whatever, you know what I mean, and all that
Mhm.
stuff because that's not something you're taught when you're doing it. You're just going by what you've heard someone else do. And unless someone tells you, okay, you need to break these things down. And he he wrote that one and from there I was like fucking, I'm like a sponge. I can absorb shit like this. Um so when I realized he was the structure of that song, I start writing the structure of songs similar to that, but then I change it up. There's certain songs like on the first album that it's one long ass verse, chorus at the top, chorus at the bottom, because we didn't want to do what everybody else was doing, just stick with one particular formula. We changed it up, but he did show me the value of the structure of how you write a song as opposed to just writing a rap.
Yeah.
Um, like like teaching me about like utilizing concepts and stuff like that, things to talk about instead of just writing gibberish that rhymes.
Hmm.
Having like a background, having like writing an experience, a story, kind of like Slick Rick. So, yeah, Mello and Brett B were my first two teachers that put me on the course. Showed me one that I could do it, and then showed me the structure of how to do it, and I was on from there.
Man, salute and salute to Mellow Man Aces. We've had him on on B Boys. I'm trying to get him back on because we had some technical difficulties with his phone. But man, much love to Mellow Man Ace and
Hell
everything
yeah.
like that. Such a great.
Real quick, can we salute B's pen? His pen game, what he's been all
Oh
the
my God,
all
yeah.
his new shit, you know what I mean? The Real Cycle, the album with Scott Storch is like one of
Thank
my
you.
jump offs. Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. I mean, quite honestly, you absolutely are hip hop royalty. I mean, the Soul Assassin family, when we talk about like, you've been given, of course, the high priestess or high priest of weed and culture and all of that and even before there was the Chronic, there was Cypress Hill.
Hell
Cypress
yeah.
Hill was the first band. And in my most uh, you know, best way I can give you a compliment, I would put you on the level of being hip hop's Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, just for the simple fact of the the dark, eerie vibes, the mysteriousness, the from the Muggs production to Urine Sins and everybody collaboratively that worked on that album. Like, it was something that captured me and had me hook, line, and sinker from the absolutely beginning because it was so visual. It was so visual. Like headphones and being a DJ and listening, just digesting everything. I was on it was watching a movie inside my mind.
Word up.
Just because of your pen and what everybody did and how the production came together and how you continue to build upon that throughout your career.
Well, I
You
could
know,
I could say that Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin were big to us as a collective. We all were like one of my one of my tape collections was all Led Zeppelin as well. And I know Muggs had a bunch of Led Zeppelin shit, because I mean he loves Jimmy Page. He's a
mm,
very big fan of the brilliance of Jimmy Page. And so like when they used to first compare us to the Grateful Dead of hip hop, and we thought that was cool, and we know what that meant. Um, it meant that we had this thing to where we cultivated this fan base that fucks with us, throughout the journey, no matter what, whether we have new albums or we don't. They show up to the shows, and they become a part of that Cypress Hill experience, which was very much happening with Grateful Dead. They didn't have to put out a record, and people would show up, and they'd make a go of it, and so we had collected that, as a stripe. Like, well, okay, we're the Grateful Dead, but we didn't really have that connection with the Grateful Dead because they were really different.
mm,
In terms of movement and building a cult following, yes, that part. But we were more like you could say Led Sabbath or Black Zeppelin. We're a combination of
Hell
those
yeah.
groups
yeah,
because what we wanted to do always was convey the dark part of it, with the vibe, and then the imagery. That was all like, inspired by Sabbath and Zeppelin, being more obscure and dark and never really showing our faces on any of our covers. Maybe on the back cover or
mhm,
some other alternative art, but not ever on the cover. That was all taken from, our love for metal music, but explored it onto hip hop because nobody else was doing that. So
yeah.
when people say that we're the Black Sabbath or Led Zeppelin of hip hop, we take that shit with honor because that's really what we've always considered ourselves. We're not the Grateful Dead of hip hop. We're either the Sabbath or the Led Zeppelin of this shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a great compliment that it's an honor for people to think that about us for sure.
What's so funny is that, my father, one of my memories about you guys, Kill a Man video, it just came out. I'm watching it, I'm bumping it. It's either Yo MTV Raps or it's, the video jukebox or Rap City, with the original mayor. All, yeah, all of that stuff, right? Like, and he came in and he was like, how I could just kill a man. Hmm. Like that.
Yeah,
And I was like, I looked at him and knowing my father, uh, and he just was like, I feel that. He just walked away, and left it alone. But I mean, it was that sentiment. How I could just kill a man, like
yeah.
absolutely,
Hell yeah.
So sometimes when I've told C minus this, who's listening along. And I'm
Yeah.
sure Mad Waves has heard this because I've mentioned it on our Dr. Greetham show that sometimes I'll be so high on stage that when we're performing it, I'm listening to it as I'm doing it, and I'm like just thinking, God damn, this song is fucking aggressive. Like I can't believe that, that we got this off right here. This is crazy. And
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
because it's aggressive, but it's a scenario of the life we were living before all this, and our experiences in our communities that we lived in. Like some of us had to fight for survival or fight to protect the little shit that we had because we worked hard or hustled hard enough to get this, and here comes some motherfuckers trying to take it from us, and
Yep.
and so sometimes you're fighting for survival, sometimes you're fighting to protect yours, and that was
Yep.
what we were really trying to convey in the song. You know Other people took it other ways, but that's the thing about music. People will interpret it how they see it until they hear it from you, and even after they hear it from you, they'll even say, well, yeah, well, maybe that's how you meant it, but this what it means to me. So
Yeah.
it's subjective, and but what's the cool part is that what I've had and what we've all had as the group is people coming up to us saying, "Hey, man, your songs helped us through this, that, and the other, and without this, I couldn't have gotten through the hard shit I was going through." And so, well, when I'm in my head about how aggressive these songs are, and then I hear someone saying how it helped them, it kind of levels it off for me. But sometimes I'm thinking like that 50-year-old man, what the fuck is this? How I could just kill a man shit.
Well, you know what? I think
And I
about
wrote
it
it.
is it's the escapism, you know what I mean? But it's the release of energy. And uh I would say though, salute to you in regards to uh the fact that, you've shown throughout the years not only progression as an artist, but progression as a businessman, entrepreneur, all of these different things, right? And the fact that you also really promote spiritual well-being, mental health well-being, and also physical health, and put those forth, and also you put out such a positive message now these days in regards to just we watch daily, right? We watch your show daily, and you always end the show on something positive. And you guys are by far, in my opinion, one of the most touchable, relatable, and most loyal to your fans because you truly do honor and connect with the people
The
that
people.
have been with you, and it only shows in the following, and it's because you guys are such great humble individuals.
Yeah, thank you for recognizing that. Because it took some years to evolve into that for sure. I mean, I've had all of these things. The having to deal with the things going on in your head as a young man when you're very angry about everything in life, right? And trying to deal with that. And fortunately, hip hop became a platform for me that I could speak these things for myself and for others. And then dealing with the spiritual part of it. I've always been spiritual, not necessarily religious, because I feel like sometimes, well, most times, religion is not where it's at. They try to reel you in to get your money, but they don't really help spiritually. Um, but I've always believed in a higher power, and I've been blessed by that. So, that I knew for a long time. So that's always been there. And the physical fitness and stuff like that. I've been in trouble before where I let myself go and I thought I was good, and then I looked in the mirror and I didn't recognize who I was. And then, I seen pictures that people took before all these platforms became a thing. And I didn't recognize who I was right there. And I told myself I'd never let myself get out of hand like that. So I just started slowly but surely working on myself in all these places, like learning how to meditate so I could get rid of that anger and harness that into something else and get over whatever the fuck I was dealing with in my own head and why I was so angry at everything. And then again, reconnecting with the spiritual side of myself through some of the meditation and stuff like that, and years of prayer. I make sure I pray every day. So to stay connected with the great creator, we do this on tour even before we start our shows. And, in terms of the physical fitness, I had to make it a part of who I was and not make it a fix where I'm just doing this because I got to drop a couple pounds for this or that. No, I'm doing this because I want to, sustain my life as long as I can so I could be here and enjoy the time with my family, enjoy my career, and enjoy the fruits of my labor and feel good about myself and feel right. So, I had to like work that into the culture of who I am as opposed to making it a fix. So all these things took, some years to work on and to recognize because, when you're in your early 20s, you're just going and you're not thinking about any of that type of shit. You're just going. When you get into the 30s, you start reflecting a little bit and you change a couple things. And in your 40s, by then, you better have grown the fuck up.
Bam.
You know what I
Before it
mean?
hits you.
Because it'll hit you. You know what I mean? And fortunately, I was able to grow up at the right time, and figure the things out. And so, I realized that the blessing comes from my creator, right? From God or whatever you want to call the energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I thought, um, and I don't remember when we started doing it, but I just started trying to say some positive things to people, most especially at the end, like self-empowering things. I mean, I'm not a therapist, I'm not that kind of doctor, but I do know that manifestation is key, and if you tell yourself positive things, you can make positive things happen, and positive things might happen, and you might actually recognize them as opposed to where you're constantly feeding yourself some negative shit and you're so focused on that that you don't see when a positive thing is happening or an opportunity is happening for you. So I decided to, try to convey this to people because it's helped me. So I figure, if someone could sort of change up their mindset and rewire, that would be a great thing. And that even helped me to go back to your what you were talking about, my pen work, right? Because for so long people expected me to be writing the way I wrote for the first Cypress Hill album and the second one, specific cadences, um, melodic style stuff, and it sort of boxed me into, you know, they didn't look at me as an MC more than they looked at me as someone who writes these songs, right? So I started thinking out of the box with the pen work and saying to myself, I can go anywhere with this. I can hang with anybody. If you put me on a song with Eminem, I could hang with him. If you put me on a song with Jay-Z, I could hang with him. If you put me on a song with KRS-One, I could hang with him. I could hang with any fucking body you put me
Facts.
Yes,
on
sir,
the
you
track
can.
with. And when I started utilizing that mentality, it became a reality.
Hmm.
So, it worked for me. So I figure, convey this to people that whatever it is you do, whether it's music or something else, could be acting, it could be construction work or anything, you apply this mentality, I could do this better than anybody else. And if you put the work to this, you could be as good, if not better than anybody else. It takes the work, but you got to have the belief in yourself, and you got to tell yourself that. So that's something I definitely focus on trying to convey to people.
Man, and I can
Oh
only
yeah.
echo that sentiment because absolutely, if you listen to those voices that are negative and repeating inside your mind, it will absolutely destroy you mentally, and you have a lot of work to do to pick yourself up. And again, the reason why I mentioned that is I'm glad that you went into that because you, sir, helped me myself again with that because dealing with the struggles and challenges that I had, you know, with my illness, by watching you guys and watching and being able to meet, the beautiful people of the community and, see and then watching you guys, it and have that positive energy out there really did help me focus in on and lock in on yes. So it's important that you know that you are doing it. And again, we love to give people their flowers when they're here. And much love to
Hell
you on
yeah.
that one.
Hell yeah.
Salute.
Well, thank
I
you.
Salute.
know we've got just a little bit of your time left, and I know there's so much more that we have to ask. But you, you've been on this side of the mic or this side of the table where you're the interviewee, and then you have had a very long history with the broadcasting, with the radio show, all the way through to BReal TV. You know, being on both sides of the mic changes how you move. What's the difference, or what could you say the best advice you could give to somebody that's on either side of the game trying to learn how to do this?
I think, be yourself. And, some people have to learn how to be themselves because some people don't know who they are yet. But,
Yeah.
um, that's the best thing you could do because when you try to emulate someone else, someone's just going to come and call you out. Oh, well, this is you. You're trying to be like them. You got to be the original you. And and just work on it because none of it comes easy. I mean, for me, it started with radio. It wasn't an opportunity that I thought was coming to me, but salute to Michelle S., who was the program director of KMEL in the Bay, who saw something funny about me and about Eric Bobo and I and our group of people that we had in our circle that thought she thought it would be hilarious on radio. So she gave us our first break, and then when she moved over to 92.3 The Beat here in Los Angeles, um, she gave me a call and said, "Hey, would you want to do this here in LA?" And I was like, "Let's do it." And I realized in doing that show the importance of a platform, and it wasn't something that I wasn't that I was that I had training in. The only training that I previously had was being on the other side of the mic, being interviewed by, the host of whatever radio shows, and we'd have to go do promo for Cypress Hill. Got to talk to this guy, that guy, Julio G, the Baker Boys, and the rest. I knew that part of it, and so soaking up some of what you know I was learning from doing interviews. When I got the opportunity, I kind of flipped it and realized, okay, these are some base questions you got to ask, but really, I don't want to ask questions that all these other guys ask other artists because to me that was corny. For me, being an artist, asking another artist a question I already know the fucking answer to, even if I know that the
Yep.
crowd
Yep.
doesn't know that. I just don't want to have them have the typical experience coming to see us. So it was always about conversation. Sure, plug away to whatever product or event or merch or whatever it is that you need to plug while you're here, but more than anything, I'm going to have a conversation with you. And that sort of, mentality is what I got when I was working on radio for those 3 4 years and when I got into the live streaming, I just applied that knowledge and made it even more different because now you have a visual and not just audio. So I just took what I knew from there and try to dial it in different, even more so because doing radio without a visual leaves people more to imagine, and it's kind of more fun than being in front of a camera. But I learned to do that, and I learned to harness it, and it became a thing where we created another platform that was significant for us. So I just started working on it, and we're still dialing in. I don't ever feel you ever feel dialed in. Yeah. Um, you never really feel fully comfortable. At least I don't. I'm constantly thinking like, how can we make this shit better?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, fast forwarding, I know you guys are working on, and it was a question that someone wanted me to ask you. You guys are working on the Spanish album. Please, can you share anything about it? And I know you guys are recording still, or have you wrapped up recording?
Well, we wrapped up recording, so now it's arrangements and sound levels and stuff like that, dialing that in. But yeah, we were working on it all through um, I'm gonna say most of December up until Christmas time. We were working on it, and then we went into our Christmas break, and then we came back and started working on it like this. Just after Christmas, those few days to wrap the rest of it. Actually, we started before Christmas. I'm gonna say we started in well, before December. I think we started in November, like late November going into December. And it took us about 5 to 6 weeks or something like that to record it
Hell yeah.
combined to stretch throughout. Um, Timeline is murky because we were high as fuck. So it might have been early November, then Thanksgiving break. Then we came back in the first weeks of December to do the other parts of the recording. Took the Christmas break and then finished out the last recording after that. So since then they just been dialing in the mixes and stuff like that. So there's about 12 to 13 songs on there, all Spanish, all original, with the exception of one. There's one remake that we did, but or maybe two, but one of them's ours and one of them's an interpolation of another song. But it came out really fucking cool. We can't wait for people to hear
Hell yeah.
it, especially because we focused on flexing the American style of rhyme scheme in Spanish, which is very tough to do, just because of the way you have to phrase things in Spanish. It's fucking tough.
And
We're gonna
Muggs
be.
is, go ahead,
Go
sir.
ahead,
My
sir.
apologies. No, I
No,
just
go
was
ahead.
going to ask you, Muggs is doing the majority of the production on this?
No, Muggs didn't do the production on this one. We went with one of my
Gotcha.
boys, DJ Flicked, um, who I've been working with for a while now. Bobo and I have been working with them on a lot of stuff for the LAFC
Yes, sir.
music and
Yes,
stuff
sir.
like that.
That's right.
So I worked on with worked with Flicked on a couple different songs, something for the Kings, and a lot of sports driven type of music to represent our some of our Los Angeles teams. Not all of them because they don't all deserve it, but um, so I had a chemistry with Flick. So did Eric Bobo, and when we rocked this Spanish album, I felt like it needed to be specifically a specific sound, but in a different way that than people would expect, because we do a lot of the dark psychedelic type of shit. And for this Spanish thing, I wanted a little something more poppin' rather than dark and spooky and psychedelic. I wanted something more
Okay.
boom bapish, something more in your face, and something a little bit brighter. And
Okay.
and Flicked, he fucking hit it on the head. I gotta say, I mean, he came through with a big sound. It's very hip hop, but we have some twists and turns on it that are pretty dope. And I'm more than satisfied with the shit because, like, in the beginning, I didn't really want to do it. I knew it was going to be a lot of work because, my primary language is English. I speak Spanish kind of, but it's not my full strength. But I think people will be very surprised when they hear this shit on what we were able to do. As you know, we were the first ones to deliver a Spanish album in hip hop form way back with Grandes Éxitos. So we
Yes.
built up a base of fans that wanted that Spanish language hip hop. And from that time to now, there are so many Spanish hip hop artists from all these different Spanish speaking countries that are badass. And
It's
they
beautiful.
feel and they filled that void that we left there when we didn't do anything else. I mean, I've done like features and stuff like that with other artists, but as Cypress goes, we haven't really like flexed again since that time. So, we had this little bit of time carved out to work on that, and I think, yeah, we're gonna have some Cypress fans that like from our day one, like yes, and then there's gonna be some haters like fuck that. But that's the dynamic of making music, so I don't
Art
get too
is for
sick.
everyone. Like
Forget
Artists,
the
yeah,
it's
haters.
art.
Forget the
yeah,
haters.
And
yeah, and
fuck them.
we never really gave a fuck about any haters. So if you
No,
love
you
it, you
never
love it.
have.
If
Well,
you
that
don't, you don't.
that Grande Éxitos definitely got me rapping in Spanish, and I definitely thank you guys for that. It's a great album.
Word up. I gotta say that on this Spanish album, there are some hip hop fucking joints, and the flex
Hell yeah.
on styles, crazy. And then there's some other stuff that probably people won't expect from us, but they're fucking dope too. And if you just listen with the open mind, I think it'll blow your mind that we were able to go in these directions. So, after, we're completely done recording this, we're gonna, probably go into another album session uh, in the vein of like our Skull and Bones album. Another style like that where it's half hip hop, half metal.
Ooh, hell yeah.
Dope. Hell yeah. I can't wait to hear that. And I know that you guys are dropping serial killers now, man.
Oh yeah,
Could you
yeah,
please
exactly.
tell us about how that is? And I mean, salute to the homie Exhibit and Demrick. I mean, fucking legends in their
Dope,
own
dope ass
sense,
albums.
dope pens. And I mean, everything that's been dropped has been amazing. Can you tell us about how that project was?
Absolutely. I mean, we've been a group, I think, since '09 or something like that, or 10. I can't necessarily remember, but the very first song we made was on my solo record for Duck Down, and it was a song called "Don't You Dare Laugh," where Scoop DeVille actually produced that song, and that was like the formation. It was the first actual serial killer song, but it wasn't named that because it was on my album. But we realized that we had a good contrast in our voices and in our style all together on a Scoop's track. And so we went ahead and made like, you know, 4 albums of original music. We called them mixtapes because we were just trying to give them away. I think we only sold one, which was Murder Show or something like that, or maybe the last one. I can't remember. But on this fifth album, we decided to use one producer, and we decided on Scoop DeVille because he was the first one who produced the first song for us in the first place. And we wanted a sound. We didn't want to have like fucking 10 different producers producing, these different tracks. We wanted something cohesive that,
Mhm.
it's almost like, with Cypress, it was one producer forever, which was Muggs, just like the Bomb Squad for Public Enemy for you know, those significant years and stuff like that. And when you have one producer, you get a sound out of it and an effect. And so we thought, we're gonna do the same shit with Serial Killers and Scoop DeVille. That was just full circle because he was the one that created the outlet for us in the Don't You Dare Laugh song. And I gotta say, he did his thing on all the music that inspired us, and we inspired each other. Really, we like. Um, Muggs always told me to if you want to be the best, you got to be around the best, and we all make each other that because we're always challenging each other's pen work, um, in a very friendly way. Because Exhibit is he's a bad motherfucker, and so is Demrick. So like it keeps me sharp, and God willing, they look at me like I'm keeping them sharp. You know what I mean? So yeah, it makes it easy to be creative around other guys that are excited about it, and they're being creative and they're challenging as well as I'm challenging them, and we're all challenging each other. And I think that's why this album is probably the most special because we did stick with the one guy who we all believed in and who gave us the first sound in the first place, and you know bouncing our ideas off of each other and everybody being open to it. And yeah, it's a great album. I can't wait for people to hear it. It's true fucking hip hop for sure.
Hell yeah. And Scoop is a dope,
Hmm.
dope producer. I mean,
One of the
Hell yeah.
dopest. One of the dopest for sure.
yeah, man. Absolutely. You know, question for you. So, because I know there's been asked, everybody want to know about like the Simpsons and how, of course, the London Symphony Orchestra, came through, and I'm still angry about the fact that you come to Denver all the time, and I just got a chance to see you on my actual anniversary date back in August when you came to Dillon, but I didn't get a chance to come see you when you guys did the orchestra here first before you did the London Symphony, right? And you guys, there's rumors that you're possibly thinking about doing an orchestra album with Temples of Boom, maybe?
A performance for sure. I don't know if it's going to be an album, but we do try to record everything that we do in that form. So that
Yeah,
might be a thing. I mean, the other thing was, us coming out with an original album with orchestration, as
yeah.
opposed to a translation of one of our previous albums, like doing an original
Ooh.
piece. So that's something that we're experimenting with for next year, or maybe the later part of this year. It depends, because our schedules are mad fucked up for this year. But
Yeah.
we're going to be most likely doing it with Troy Miller, who conducted the London Symphony Orchestra on that play. He's a great arranger, and he's a really dope producer too. So we're probably going to do that with him,
So he'll be the producer on that album as well.
most likely. And if we could get Muggs to get down with that, then they may do it together. But
That'd be
that's
dope.
that's something that has yet to be discussed. I'm just manifesting here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, you know, one of the questions, you love bowling. You have a love for bowling.
Yeah,
You guys just recently put that out, knocking down pins, with the
right.
with the homies and everything. And my son, he's a bowler. He's been bowling since 6, and I've got twins. Um, you know, what would you tell a kid that who wants to get good and stay with it? Is there any good habits or any advice that you could give?
I'm gonna say it's putting in the hours to dial in your roll. I mean, we don't roll enough to dial in. I mean, we'll get hot, like C minus will get hot, I'll get hot. There's, a lot of our guys will get a hot hand, but to do it consistently so that the feel of your roll, you got to put hours upon hours in because anything that you want to get good at, it takes that time to master the craft. Like they say, the 10,000 hours. I mean, that's true for
Yep.
anything you do, whether it's, you know, no matter what job you do. It could be, you could be DJing, you could be on the writing and the mic work or the performances and stuff like that, or something completely away from the entertainment industry. It's just the more you do it, it becomes innate, and that's everything. Because when it becomes second nature, it's you've gotten good at it, and then if you've gotten good at it, you put even more work, you could get great at it. So I would just say stay bowling, stay in those lanes, rolling, looking at different techniques and finding the one that fits you, and getting consistency in that technique. That's the one thing we lack. We don't go bowl enough to get our technique consistent. That's why we'll have hot hands someday instead of just, knocking them down consistently. Although we are
Gotcha.
getting better. We are getting a little more consistent.
That's dope. Uh, and to speak to the cannabis culture and everything in your business ventures with that, especially, you know, if you think about it like this, vanity brands have came and gone, right? And not saying that you're a vanity brand or anything like that, but there's been celebrity brands and associated into, their own grows, but by far, you know, they're nowhere in comparison to your product and everything like that, or your dispensaries. How do you stay competitive in that and focus your attention and energy on that, as well as, managing your music career and everything else that you have in there?
Well, it's important to have teams to be able to manage the different things that you might do outside of where your primary function is, right? So, I have a team that works the Dr. Green Thumb brand, and, I supervise and approve the certain things that we do to make sure that it's on brand and whatnot. Or if we're putting out new strains, I'll make sure that I test the strains myself, um, along with some of my other trusted Green Thumb University alum, that know the that have a good palate for sussing out great cannabis and not so great cannabis. So it's about having a team, really.
Dope. And I wanted to ask you, what is your opinion on this legislation that's coming, and what do you what and the whole changing of the scheduling, how is that going to impact you?
Well, that's the scheduling is obviously important. People have been waiting for that to change for a long time. We don't know how it's going to affect us yet. I mean, our taxes are high here in California, so
Hmm.
it's a tough business right now. I mean, yes, cannabis sells, but the margins to make money on it are pretty difficult for most operators at this point, whether you're a cultivator or a shop owner or both. You probably make a little bit, um, you make up more of the margin probably owning the shop, and having a cultivation so that you don't have to outsource every single thing, but it's still tough until taxes come down. It's still an uphill battle, even though we have it and it's great and we have our freedoms and less people are going to jail behind cannabis. There's still a lot of work to be done, but one of the main things is they got to bring down the taxes and then recognize it federally, so that we have one particular mode of operation as opposed to going state by state, where if you're a multi-state operated brand, you have to do different things in every state. That gets costly. Um, so, for instance, let's say in Denver, in California, you could use this logo, right? But in Florida, you can only use the letters, but you can't use the image.
Hmm.
It's little shit like that. So it's impossible to have like a
Brandon.
consistency. It's yeah,
Like brand standard, you can't have a brand standard.
you can't have a brand standard, no consistency or continuity, because you got to change your bag from state to state.
Mm.
Some of the other states, you could have maybe the same bag, but like certain shit has to be placed in different spots than what California might. So it's a big pain in the ass, in terms of that part. But it's great to have the opportunity to do it. It's just, you have to have a strong brand presence to get through all that crap. Fortunately, we've been at this a long time, and the music gave us a head start. So, people see my brand and they might go to it. Um, so that's the one thing that works in our favor in the uncertain times of the cannabis industry is that we still have a brand that no matter what, people will react to. So if we plant a flag here, they'll go to it, or if we release a product over here, they'll go to it. Um, as long as we remain who we are as not only operators of it but connoisseurs who will tell you about other brands that are very good, if not great, as opposed to just, pushing our brand. Because if we were just pushing our brand, I think people would be like, well, of course you're going to say it's the best. But we're giving love and flowers to other brands that are great as well. So I think that's why people trust in what we do because we're honest about everything. When we find something good, we'll tell you about it, even if it's not ours. If we find something shitty, we'll tell you about it, whether it's ours or someone else's. And that's the nature of it for us. We're fortunate in that way.
Well, hey, man, I'm hopeful and I'm not going to ask you because I already know that the standard answer is watching. The thing is, I just hope whatever hurdles that are in your way for you be planting a flag here in Denver, get cleared up sooner rather than later,
At
regardless
some
of what the
point,
hurdles are.
at some point, we'll be out there, man.
I know you will, but hey, it's all good. Just whatever it is, I hope that I hope that gets cleared up soon, man.
All love.
I know. Listen, I know we're over your time. Is there any way I can ask a couple questions from the audience and then we can
Yeah,
wrap
go
it?
ahead. Yeah, for
All
sure.
right, dope, man. So Gorilla Strong, and shout out to Gorilla Strong because he helped book the guest that we have tomorrow. We have Ryu tomorrow from uh man, I cannot wait. I cannot wait to have Ryu on, man. Just like you, it's like 2026. This has been a gift, right? So thank you, Gorilla.
Hell
He
yeah.
wants to know
Right on.
basically any updates on new. Let's see. I'm trying to read because
War porn
yeah.
industries, or La Coca Nostra in the works.
Thank you.
I think Warport Industries Everlast was talking about doing something, but there wasn't necessarily anything set in stone. And I don't really know about La Coca. They're very much do their thing, and every now and then they'll hit me up for a feature and stuff like that. So those are my boys. So when they call, I'm always ready.
Hell yeah.
Awesome, man. Yeah. Mr. Mikey Unlikely, one of us, the usual suspects, basically wants to know what was it like going to the same school with Slayer, man?
That was
Same high
Sendog,
school.
actually. Yeah, Sendog
That was
went
Sindog?
to high school with Dave Lombardo. He got a chance to experience that. That was like maybe a couple years before my time, because by the time I start hanging out at Southgate High with Mello, Sendog's out of school by this time. So, yeah, I didn't get a chance to see any of the Slayer performances, but I met Dave way back because his first wife lived next door to Sendog, like three houses down or something like that. So he was constantly coming down to Cypress, and he was always very cool with us.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely. That's dope, man. And then let's see here. We got this question here. Does B listen to Corridos?
Yeah, now and then I'll listen to some corridos for sure.
That was from
Hell
El
yeah.
Mando.
El Mundo. Much love. And Three Eyes wants to know, ask him about Aquasha psychedelic journeys of the soul. I cannot say that.
Ayahuasca. Ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca. I
Yeah,
don't even
no,
know. Like I thought that was something else. I didn't.
yeah,
I know what
no,
ayahuasca is.
I haven't. I haven't. I've had many friends that have told me about their journeys and there are moments of clarity and the certain resolution that comes in certain journeys into the ayahuasca, but I have yet to do it.
Gotcha. I love the fact that nowadays, especially now more than ever, the use of psilocybin is being really, pushed in, like, especially the PTSD areas and things of that nature, where they're starting to take some of this natural holistic medicine that was, around for since the beginning of time, and these drug companies have stepped on them or whatever, and not given us access to it. But there's better ways and alternative ways to deal with some of the trauma and PTSD, like, growing up in the environment you grew up in, or, other folks, whatever they experience, so I think it's dope that, there's access available to that stuff nowadays.
Yeah, it's helping
Uh,
a lot of people.
Absolutely. We've got uh For the Love of Music says, when someone samples your music or does something that reminds you of your music, does it offend you or flatter you?
No, I get I'm flattered by it. I mean, because it's not something you think about when you're first doing it, that people are gonna love your shit so much that they might sample it and use it. I think the first experience I had with that was with Redman with Time for Some Action. And hearing that, I was like, "Oh shit, we should have used that." uh, and Muggs
Yeah.
was like, "Oh snap, I had something with kind of like the same thing, but not the same thing. And, well, we can't use it now." But I did not get offended. I was like, actually, like, "Oh shit, Red Man used my shit. That was awesome." And years later, Redman would come to tell me when him and Method Man were doing their runs together, which they still do now. But I happened to catch a show that they did at House of Blues where Alchemist and Evidence were opening up for them, and they invited me down because
Oh yeah, I was there.
they were gonna do hits from the bong, and they were dressed like us in the '90s. And so they wanted me to see that. So I went down there, and Red and Meth didn't know I was there, but I was sitting up in the balcony, and they were like, "Hey, we just want to shout out BReal. We got a lot of our game from him. He inspired us. That's why we use his shit here and there, and blah blah blah." And, I thought that was really big of them because I mean, you don't really hear stuff like that, and
Hell yeah.
I thought that was fucking awesome because they didn't even know I was in the building, and they were giving me those flowers, and I went down to thank them for that after the show, but it was unexpected, for me to hear them say that, like with the Time for Some Action deal, and then the weed stuff, and then the Method Man, talking about he was inspired by one of the flows on Hand on the Pump or something like that.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it was just big for me because I respect those guys. I love them. They're some of my favorites. So for them to be giving me those flowers, that was everything.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, man, that's dope. Well, listen, man, as someone that is still absolutely delivering nothing but gold standard performances, and it's so good to see that the real hip hop and the folks of my age, and the fact that hip hop is coming back to, and when you've got to work with, the Yodis, man, and the Yodis, my God, salute to them with the shirt, LA
Hell yeah.
Swang, and
Salute.
you destroyed that verse, and then of course you're trying to get high, fool, and all of these things that you're doing, the collaborations that you're doing, the Real
Real
Cycle
cycle.
album,
Real cycle.
you
That motherfucker.
absolutely destroyed. And Les, you guys, I really hope that you do another project, because that
Word up.
was absolutely an impeccable album front to back.
Top to bottom. Hell yeah.
Yeah, we're
Real
working with
cycle.
working with Les is dope because I mean, he's got great ideas musically, and you know, um, we didn't even really intend to make an album. It was like doing a couple of songs, and before you know, we had like 4 or 5 songs. I didn't even know he was going to get on him. I thought he was just giving them to me. I didn't know what I was going to do with them. And then I started hearing his verses on him. I'm like, oh shit, we got something. And they were just so different. I just find it funny how, a lot of the so-called hip hop publications that exist now, whether in the digital form or not, they didn't they didn't necessarily talk about our shit. Like they talked about a lot of other shit that was not as good, but they didn't talk about Les and myself, our project as Real Psycho. We had to sort of do that organically all ourselves, like, and put it out because it seems like, I don't know what it was, because I feel like we could put our album up against anything that came out in that time, and even some of the
Absolutely.
shit after it, and we're burning them. But
Smacking.
you didn't hear about it from any of these so-called hip hop
Nope.
platforms. But I'll say this: Shade 45 definitely represented us and rocked those songs. So salute to the DJs on Shade 45 and the
And we
programmers up there.
represented you here. We
And
represented you
y'all
here on Real
represent
Hell
us.
Psycho.
yeah.
Salute to everybody that represented us, and fuck everyone who did not. Because
That's right.
Psycho
Fuck.
Les is a fucking legendary producer and
Production was
rapper.
fire. Hell yeah.
Production was fire, and yeah, that they didn't see fit to talk about it as much as they did other shit. But that is the other thing with being an independent, artist, putting it out independently. Um, it's not going to have as much run as when you're signed to a label that has these resources that are going to make the people aware of it. Because more than anything, that's probably the biggest lack in independent music, is that you don't have the funding to market and promote. You have to try and get the song to go viral if you don't
Hmm.
have the marketing dollars, and that's tough.
I got you. And,
Word
and,
up.
and we've had Demizo on the show twice here, and he's active and very vocal about like the music industry and the climate with everything. And what you just said, you don't have the beast behind you and the dollars, and it's difficult. It's very difficult, but also, don't you feel like it's now more rewarding that you can actually just go direct to consumer and also put out whatever you want to put out, however you want to put it out, and have that freedom instead of kind of the slavery of a contract?
Yeah, I mean, if you could work out your dream contract, it would be to make one record at a time with no option. That way, you're always a free agent, because you're not really, even if you sign to a lengthy contract, like for Cypress Hill, our first record deal with Sony was like for 8 albums. That's 8 albums. You got to stay with this label, and hopefully they understand who you are, and they put all the marketing dollars and everything they spend in the right place. And fortunately, we could say that Sony did a pretty goddamn good job with Cypress Hill. I didn't leave Sony like pissed off and like, oh fuck them and blah
Much
blah
love to Rough
blah.
House.
I didn't
Hell
have
yeah.
that experience with
Rough
Sony
House.
or Rough House. Well, Rough House was there in the first 2 3 albums, and then they dissolved and it went to
That was
Sony.
just Sony.
Sony.
But
Okay.
I'll say that
Gotcha.
but I'll say that our experience with both Rough House and Sony were great experiences, because they worked with us. They didn't try to work over us or mold us into something that they thought we should be. They let us be us. We won and lost on our decisions, and they allowed that. So they allowed us to grow, and
Hell yeah.
we can't really complain about that. Now, were we stuck in a long ass contract? Hell yeah, but we utilized the strength in that, which was the marketing dollar. Um, with having your own shit and calling your own shots, it's great, because people might come to it later. Sometimes in the initial burst of it, they might not know it, but someone always puts them onto it. I mean, look at some of these young folks are now going back to a lot of these 90s playlists and listening to those golden era artists. And it's not something that's right there bright and shiny for them to see. They actually have to go look for it.
Dig.
So, yes,
The new
like the grave
digging.
digging. It's the new digging. So You know, if you make something that didn't initially pop, it doesn't mean it won't pop later in this era. You know, and it's never too late. I'm of the mindset that like, you know, you can make a video to a song you did 20 years ago, and if you didn't make a video to it then, you could make it now. It'll probably still pop if you make an official video though. Not
Hell
like
yeah.
not some TikTok clip, but some real shit. I think
A
people,
real joint.
yeah, something they haven't seen, like, oh shit, I never knew there was a video to this. But
Hell
it's
yeah.
it could be you just made it, you know. The rules are meant to be broken, so I'm gonna break the fucking rules like legs every chance I get.
Can I say one thing? When you guys did the Lyrical Hammers video, man, and you guys did that show at the whiskey, I just, much love, fucking salute to y'all. It was like me living in my fucking high school fantasy to see you and Les up there doing Cypress and Beat Nuts tracks back to back with real psycho tracks in between live. Like that shit was epic as fuck, inspirational, amazing. And I really wish y'all should do a show like shows, you and Les doing that
Tore it.
that same thing, the beat nuts, Cypress, and Real Cycle. It was fucking amazing. That shit
Yeah,
was
we'll probably put another one together at some point. I mean, we threw that together. We didn't even have a rehearsal, but that, you know, that's us knowing our songs and, you know,
yeah,
just
yeah.
having a conversation about it. And you know, C minus did a great job that night.
Hell
So
yeah.
salute to
Shout
C
out to C.
minus.
Hell yeah.
C
Um,
minus. Yes.
yeah, and I want to thank you for having me on. This was awesome.
Yes. Thank you
And
so much.
and everybody wants to know when the show is coming back.
January 12th, Dr. Green Thumb show. At least that's the target date. So hopefully
There it
next
is,
week
y'all.
on
There it
Monday we'll
is.
be in the house.
Gotcha. So check it out, man. Tomorrow night, we've got Ryu from
All right,
Styles
you.
of Beyond, Demigods, Get Busy Committee, etc. That'll be at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, everywhere else in between that. And again, man, listen, this has been an absolute honor, privilege, and thank you so much for
Hell
blessing
yeah.
us with your time and giving us an opportunity to, just talk about music and just your life, and give us an opportunity to give you your flowers and let you know that how much we do appreciate you, and what amazing community that it is that you guys have fostered because of great
That you
people and
have built
individuals that
around.
you guys
Yeah.
are, man. So much love
Thank
to
you.
you.
Thank you. I
and
appreciate that.
Big love,
and much
B.
love. So everybody keep pushing, keep persevering, and stay positive. We out. Peace.